Hello, Nanowrimo writers. So, we're ready for the 2016 season. My name is Wordgenie. I'm one of your fantastic and deliriously writing co-MLs. Quill and Ink, the other co-ML, and I have been talking about some things to do for workshops, and we decided that it would be a really good idea to do a digital workshop. And part of the idea with a digital workshop isn't only because she and I are just as busy and insane as the rest of you, but because we thought, you know, we deal with scheduling conflicts and we deal with people who have things come up at the last minute and people want to come to our workshops, but they just can't make it work. So we thought, well, let's have the workshops come to you. So the objective here for this workshop is for us to be able to meet you where you are, that you can not only have a number of tools to put in your tool belt, but ideally that these tools that we put in your tool belt will be things that you can access later. And that's the nice part of having a digital workshop, is that this isn't just something that you listen to one time, but it's something that you can go back and listen to, especially if you happen to have writer's block. I mean, none of us ever gets writer's block. And the thing with writer's block is that it does happen, right? I mean, it's a myth in the sense that it's not something that should keep you from writing. It's not an excuse. It's not something that makes you throw in the towel. Instead, treat writer's block as something that is signaling that something in your writing is wrong. And not wrong as in you did something wrong, but wrong as in the sense that something in your writing can be done better. And hopefully this digital workshop will allow you to see what that is. Much of what I draw from today is going to be from the Ready, Set, Novel book. And this is from the writer, or like the original dream team of NaNoWriMo, Chris Beatty, Lindsay Grant, and Tavia Stewart Street, I'm not really sure how to pronounce her name. And so Ready, Set, Novel is actually a workbook I picked for my novel writing class at Yavapai College, and there is a lot in here that I think can really help us get our brainstorming, get the wheels turning for NaNoWriMo. So hopefully what we go through today can be something helpful for each of you. Now, Quill and Ink and I have thrown some ideas around as far as what our region's theme should be, and this year we decided on tools of the trade. And so in deciding on tools of the trade, we decided that it would be kind of a good framework to have, right? And so the first thing I want you to do is consider which tools are the most helpful to you. For me, glasses certainly are a useful tool because I'd like to see. Some of you may be notebook writers. You might exclusively write in your notebook. It doesn't really lend itself easily for NaNoWriMo because then you'll have to type up everything later. But it does tend to help you slow down in your writing and to write some really good things. So that's an idea. One of your tools may be the word processor on which you type. I am a weird person who has 10 typewriters, and I'm not even kidding. So, I mean, sometimes for NaNoWriMo, I will type on my typewriter just because it's a different method of writing, so it gets me to write in a different way. Most of you, myself included, will be using your computer, and that might be your word processor. A lot of us use a program called Scrivener. Scrivener is a wonderful program for NaNoWriMo because it helps you to keep track of your word count in an easy and accessible way. It has areas like margins for keeping notes and all kinds of useful tools that go well beyond the strict open tools of Microsoft Word. I'm not saying Microsoft Word doesn't work. Several of you, use Word and you're comfortable with it, you stick to it. Honestly, you need to stick to whatever you're the most comfortable with because as we know, NaNoWriMo is an insane season and you just need to generate words. And if you're the most comfortable with Microsoft Word, by all means, use Microsoft Word. If you're willing to try something new and if you have some time before November 1st, then I recommend you try Scrivener. You can find some videos for how to use it on YouTube. And so if you watch kind of the tutorials, you can get a sense of what it is. Other tools, this image does not capture this tool, and so I feel like I need to say, but coffee, tea, these are important tools to me, and they may be important tools to you. So whatever your tools are, make sure that you figure out what it is that you're the most comfortable with writing, and then set up all of those tools so that when you sit down to write, you are prepared, you're ready to go. So I wanted to start by talking about a couple of myths. Myth number one, I'm too busy to do NaNoWriMo. Now, if you're watching this video, you've likely already decided to do NaNoWriMo, or you might be on the fence. It is unlikely that you're watching this video not intending to do NaNoWriMo and just watching it for the sake of watching it. But I feel like this is something that we do to ourselves. We tell ourselves that we're too busy, and this is something that ends up holding us back. Maybe halfway through the month we think, I'm insane. Why did I think this was a good idea? Why did I think I had enough time? Honestly, if Quill and Ink and I can do it, then you can do it too. She and I are both full-time employees. We work anywhere from 40 to 70 hours a week, depending on the week. And if she and I can do it, then you can do it. We are your cheerleaders. And so that is one of the tools to put in your toolbox. We are your cheerleaders. We're here to encourage you. If you have any questions about how we make writing work in our insane schedule and how you can do it too, then by all means, send us a question. We would be happy to answer that question. Myth number two, I have no idea where to begin. I feel like so many writers say that they want to do NaNoWriMo. They're ready to do NaNoWriMo. They're ready to write their novel, but when they sit down to write it, they're like, I have no idea what to do. So we're actually going to tackle that idea. So here is your first prompt. To kick off your brainstorming, make a list of places and things that excite, inspire, or intrigue you. This could be cities, decades, subjects, area of study, kinds of people, or anything. So now what I want you to do, I want you to pause the video for, 5 or 10 minutes or so, and I want you to create a list. And the list can make sense. It can only make sense to you. It can just be a bunch of keywords. It doesn't have to be in complete sentences, but go ahead and make that list. So I'm going to give you a couple seconds here to pause and then start back up. Okay, you should be back right about now. And for the next bit, okay, so you're inspired, hopefully, with these this long list of things that intrigue you. This is one of the biggest tools to put in your toolbox, because this tool here could be something that you return to if maybe the idea you started for Nano isn't interesting enough. Let's say you get a couple of days into NaNoWriMo, you've run out of steam, you're not interested in your topic anymore. No one said that you have to stick to one topic. No one ever said that for 30 days you have to be absolutely miserable. So keep this list as a tool in your toolbox, because say you're 4 days in and you're completely stuck, then you can go back to this list and figure out something else to write about. So the next thing I want us to work on is our character, right? Because you need to have a couple of tools to get your story up and running. So what I want everyone to do right now is to write about your favorite character from a novel. And if you don't read as much as you would like to, or as much as you should, then you can use a movie or a TV show. But I'm going to give you another couple of minutes. I want you to come back after 5 or 10 minutes, and in that time, I want you to write about your favorite character from a novel. What are things that you like about this character? Why are they your favorite? What are their likes and dislikes? What are their good qualities? What are their bad qualities? What are parts of this character that help make this character interesting and unique, especially when we are bombarded with so many stories on a regular basis? So I'm going to give you a couple minutes again to write and then to come back. Okay, you should be coming back right about now. And now you've built up an idea of a character who really suits your needs. Now I want you to develop your own character. Now here's a prompt here. So I want you to develop your own character, but I want you to give your character weaknesses, faults. I want them to have fears. I want them to have secrets, at least one. Prized possessions, bad habits, pet peeves, something he or she is proud of. So again, I'm going to give you 5 or 10 minutes. I want you to pause the video, but I still want you to be able to see it so that you can see these prompts here. But I want you to go through each one of these and catalog, right? Catalog each one of the qualities that your character has. Go ahead and do that. Okay, you should be coming back right about now. Now, as we're looking at these list of qualities, these are important tools to have in your toolbox for your character, right? Because just as with the brainstorming list, you're going to get, a couple of pages in and your character may not be interesting to you anymore. Or you might be so distracted by your plot, which is a good distraction, but so distracted by your plot that you have lost sight of who they are as people and the fact that these people are the ones telling your story, not that you as the writer are telling your story. So how can you use these? How can you use any one of these weaknesses or faults to filter the perception of your reader, to show us exactly what they see and how they see it? And how can that one unique individual viewpoint character unveil the story for us in a way that only they can do so? Okay, so moving along, myth number 3. I am entirely a plotter or a pantster, and I can't be both. Now let's stop for a second to explain plotting and pantsing. I feel like this is a phrase that we NaNoWrimoers throw around probably way too much, but that's okay. A plotter is somebody who sticks to an outline, and a pantster is somebody who, doesn't outline at all and writes each scene as they come to it every day. Now in NaNoWrimo, we say that we're a plotter or a pantster, right? We self-identify with one of these, but I feel like a huge myth is that we can't be both. I think it's really important to make sure that you plot your novel appropriately. Now, of course, if you've been in NaNoWrimo before, if you've ever taken one of my classes, I'm very fond of drawing story arcs and explaining each bit of it, and I'm not going to do that in this digital workshop. But at least you should understand the concept of story arcs. And plotting should be something that you do at the very least so that you know that we have Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. And you should know that you should have a driving question for your protagonist here. Right? They absolutely have to have a reason to be in the story. They need to want something, and the story needs to achieve that. And in your climax, there needs to be the answer to that question. Right? So as we progress through the story, the entire story is framed around what the character wants and whether or not the character gets that. And the whole journey in here should be a journey of change, right? So your character should be changing as we go through the story. This is where a lot of writers get stuck. Now, something I think is really important to address is the whole nature of plotting. So many NaNoWrimoers are pantsters, right? And if you've done this game before, you know that we sit through, so many like web blogs and recommendations, and everyone says, here's a prompt today, you should write to this prompt. And we do whatever we need to do to get through NaNoWrimo. We write whatever people tell us to write, but this ends up being a kind of vicious circle. We keep writing to these prompts and we kind of lose track of what we're writing. I like to say that writing a novel is like trying to walk a straight line underwater, because you're not going to strictly stick to your idea. You'll want to, but it won't exactly work out the way you planned. But as you progress, you'll notice that you start to veer to the left or the right of your plan. This is normal. But here's the best way, here's the best tool to get through NaNoWriMo, is to break down your word count. So if the goal is to write 50,000 words in 1 month, because we're insane, then your Act 1 should be 12,500 words. Your Act 2 should be 25,000 words. And your Act 3 should be 12,500 words. So, yes, I feel like this is a very linear approach. And those of you pantsters are like, oh my gosh, too much structure, too much framework. But so many of us are already wired to be structured framework kind of people that I think this is really helpful. So if we're looking at our story arc over here, right? You know that in Act 1, you need to achieve 12,500 words. You know that your Act 2, which is the longest part of the story, is going to be 25,000 words. And your Act 3 should be 12,500. Now, if you structure it that way, that means that when it comes to your NaNoWriMo calendar, let's look at your calendar. So by day 7, so a week in, you have 1 week to write, you have 1 week to write Act 1. And then if you look at it the other way, then you have the last week to wrap up the novel, to write Act 3. So let's see, that would be here. That's when you start Act 3. So you have November 8th through November 22nd to write the middle of your novel. Your first week alone should be Act 1, and your last week alone should be Act 3. So again, if we look at our story arc, right? If we look at our story arc, then this should be November 1 through 7. This is 8 through 22. And this is 23 through 30. I feel like this might be really important for some of you because I, like many of you, in my first time playing Nano, got trapped in Act 1. Or at least with the first half of the story. I got so involved with the genesis of my story that I was trapped in this kind of like circling the drain motion of writing and rewriting and going back to the beginning. Don't get trapped in that. Don't circle the drain. Don't get trapped in the whirlpool, right? If we want to take the example of Odysseus, right? The sirens were singing by the whirlpool because they were tempting him to come back. Don't be dragged in by that. Instead, take this new approach and try and plot out your calendar so that you know exactly what you're doing. Okay, Kristen, easier said than done. How do we actually do that? Well, here's one way that I found very helpful. And this was inspired by the Ready, Set, Novel book. But get a 24-hour day planner. And don't you fit into this. Don't feel like you have to do this because I feel like that would just inspire writer's block. But fill it in for your character. So this is, there we go. So this is character 1. So on the day that, my novel starts, my character is going to wake up at 7 a.m. And then they're going to have breakfast and shower. Right? And ideally that won't take an entire hour, but maybe it does. Maybe I have a lazy character who takes a long time to wake up. Whatever the case, if you go through all of these hourly events, then you can really decide what the day of your character looks like, which leads to the scheduling of your character, which leads to the plotting, which leads to sequential events, right? Maybe your character planned to do something on here. Maybe they planned to have a doctor appointment at lunchtime, right? But then they blew it off, right? So what does that say about your character? So I would go through your 24-hour day planner for your character and do this as many times as you need to get a sense of who your characters are and what they need on a daily basis. And hopefully this can be a tool that helps you stay anchored in the scene and stay focused on who your character is, what they want, and what steps they're taking to achieve that, because your character needs to be active. And if we look back here at our toolbox, right, we want them to have active voice. We want to show and not tell, right? We want our characters to be very strong, self-driven people. And if they're not, they may not be at the beginning. You at least need to make their choices strong enough that it can be easy enough for you to write that story. Because remember, only you can write that story. So here's another myth. This is too much. I can't do this, right? We're going through these writing prompts. You're looking at all of the tools. You're looking at all the suggestions. You're hearing me say there's a chance you might get writer's block and you completely freak out. Guess what? You can do this. Even if you get through, half of the novel, right? And this is really common. We have 3 different events throughout the month. We have our kickoff party. We have the midpoint party, which is the night of writing dangerously. And then we always have a thank God it's over TGIO party. And I always feel like the attendance for the TGIO party is light. Why? Because we are embarrassed if we don't finish. Don't be embarrassed, because guess what? Every single person who plays is a winner. And I believe Quill and Ink even said that in her email blast a couple days ago. Every single person who plays is a winner because you have sat down to write a novel. So many people in the world that we live in, we'll come across people, oh yeah, well, I have this great idea for a novel, but I'm so busy right now, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that. And they have these reasons, quote unquote, reasons that they can't do the novel. They can't sit down and write because they're too busy. They just had a baby. They just changed a job, right? They're working 4 jobs, right? Been there, done that. But guess what? You need to sit down and do something, right? Because no one else is going to write your novel but you. Only you can tell your story. So hopefully, as we've gone through this little digital workshop, you can see that a lot of these things are tools to put in your toolbox, or your tool belt is in this case. And if you look at the example of a tool belt, right? When somebody sets out on a crafty job, they don't intend on using every single one of those tools the minute they use them, but they have them ready to go at their tool belt just in case they're halfway through a project, they realize they need something else and they need to change tools. Hopefully this workshop can be that for you. Hopefully you can set about to writing your novel. You can realize that there's something wrong, that you need to, get a different game plan and come back to this presentation. And by all means, use it again. Be inspired. Set out and do something with your novel, because that is the entire objective of NaNoWriMo. Only you can tell your story. The objective of NaNoWriMo is to get you to write. Period. Now, as I wrap up this presentation, if any of you are interested, that writer's workbook was called Ready, Set, Novel. And again, the authors are Chris Beatty, Lindsay Grant, and Tavia Stewart Straight. And what's great about this particular book is that each page has areas for you to fill in the blanks. This is a great workbook because it takes you through different prompts and different ideas. There is a story arc if you want to plot your novel. There are different things in here, like an area for you to play with titles. There are areas for you to have like a genealogy chart for your character if that's important to your story. You can describe the relationship between your main character and his or her immediate family. There's a page here for List the traits that define your main character now. Wimpy, a compulsive liar, works for an evil corporation, etc. And then in the after column, define your character at the end of your book. Brave, honest, sold everything to start a nonprofit, etc. Remember, these changes don't need to be as straightforward as the examples we list. A wimpy character may be just as wimpy at the end, but be more accepting of his timid ways. Let's see, here's another one. Pick one thing from your character's daily life and write a scene about the character and that place, including any internal or external dialogue that the place prompts. I mean, there are lots of different prompts in here, so hopefully that can be useful to you. As always, please ask questions of Quill and Ink and I. She and I are both veterans of this game now. She's been doing it for a very long time, I think as many as 10 years. Go Genie. And then I've been doing this for, I don't know, 5 years now? Time flies when you're having fun. So, I mean, we take NaNoWriMo seriously. We want you to take NaNoWriMo seriously. That doesn't mean that we don't want you to have fun, of course. We want you to have fun. But we also want you to write your novel. So if you have any questions, of course, you can message us. Otherwise, happy writing, and hopefully we will see you at our kickoff party. It will be at Yavapai College on, I don't have that date with me. I believe it's the Friday the 27th, or maybe it's the 28th. Yeah, make sure you read your email blast, because apparently I'm not as prepared as I thought I was. But in any case, I hope to see you at the kickoff party. I hope to see questions come through. I hope to see that you take your project seriously. And happy writing, dear friends.